The first bill I put in my name at my mum's house wasn't mine, it was her internet. The customer service rep asked who I was to the account holder, and I said, "Daughter, living here to help while she's recovering." They transferred the service, read me the price, $79.99 plus tax. And I set up autopay with my card because the modem light is how my mother stays connected to the world when stairs are a slow enemy. My name is Ruby Adams. I'm 31 and I work the front desk at a dental clinic 10 minutes from the house I grew up in. I check insurance cards, keep the schedule from falling apart, and know exactly which patients show up early to read magazines and which ones park, text and stroll in 5 minutes late. In late October, when my mum's knee gave out and the pain got bad enough that she finally agreed to surgery, I moved back into my old room. Same cracked ceiling line above the bed, same closet rod that leans when you hang too many winter coats. Mom, Joanna, is 59. She had her knee replaced in early November. The first 2 weeks after she came home were a loop of ice, pillows, dull pain meds, and me counting her steps from couch to bathroom like it was a tiny marathon. By December, she was doing outpatient PT. I drove her on my lunch breaks, or before my shift when they could squeeze her in early. We figured it would be a couple months. It turned into 8. My siblings live on their own, close enough to stop by, and far enough to make it a choice. Paige is 34, the oldest and the organizer. She labels things. She set up the family group chat years ago and named it Adam's Fam with a heart. Louis is 29 and runs on sports, caffeine and volume. If the game is on, he'll tell you the score before you ask. Hazel is 26 and notices everything that can be posted. She is generous with emojis and opinions. Keith is 23, the baby, and his favourite sentence starts with, "You know what you should do." They came in waves those first weeks, flowers that made the kitchen smell like a funeral home, casseroles that we ate for breakfast because no one had energy to cook. The group chat blew up with, "Anytime you need us," and "We're all pitching in." And then everyone went back to their jobs and apartments. I was there in the mornings to brew coffee and lay out Mom's pills. There after work to cook something soft enough for her to cut one-handed. There to throw in a load of towels that somehow never stop. I put the water in my name when the city sent another late fee notice addressed to her. The clerk in the utilities office said it was fine as long as someone living at the address took responsibility. It averaged around $42 a month through winter, crept up when the lawn needed a drink. I stopped at the grocery store on my way home from the clinic 3-4 times a week. Milk, chicken thighs, spinach, coffee, paper towels. I'd text the group chat for requests and get "OMG yes, oat milk thank you" from Hazel, and Doritos, if they're on sale, from Louis. Paige would reply with a thumbs up emoji and a note about tracking expenses later. We never tracked anything. They still came by, Paige with her planner and a "We're making progress" voice. Louis to pick up leftovers and turn on the TV loud enough to cover the squeak of Mom's brace. Hazel to bring candles and take a picture of Mom's smile for her stories. Keith to lean against the counter and tell me what he'd do differently with the surgeon, with the rehab, with the heating bill. Then they'd leave and I'd wipe the counters and set out Mom's ice machine and fill the tray with water, because it was simpler than arguing about who should be doing what. The jokes started around January. "Must be nice to sit all day," Louis said when I kicked off my shoes after 8 hours behind a desk. "You're living rent-free, Rubes," Hazel sang as she swung her bag, Goich, over her shoulder. Paige smiled too tight and said, "We'll figure out a fair system soon," like a promise and a warning. Keith clapped me on the back and told me I should ask Mom to charge you something small. It builds character. I laughed because it was easier than listing receipts. Mom heard some of it, and when she did, she hushed them and squeezed my hand. She hates conflict the way some people hate mold. "Don't mind them," she'd say. You're helping me. That's all that matters. I told myself I could swallow a few digs until she was steady, until the cane became an accessory more than a crutch. By spring, we had a rhythm. I left the house at 7:30, clocked in by 8 hours, answered calls about chipped molars and cancellations, picked up groceries on my way home, and checked the mailbox for hospital bill codes. I kept the Wi-Fi humming and the water running because those are the kinds of silences you can't fill with pep talks. We have Sunday dinner every week. It's Paige's thing. Keeps us connected, she says. And she's right. It does. That Sunday, I was stirring a pot of marinara and checking the oven temp when my phone buzzed. Paige's text hit the group chat before anyone arrived. 6 p.m. sharp, bring your wallet. Paige showed up 5 minutes early with a tote bag and a face like she was chairing a meeting. Louis came in behind her, already narrating the pregame from his phone. Hazel kissed Mum's cheek and adjusted the dining room light for ambiance. Keith wandered in last with a to-go coffee and no explanation. We ate at the big table because Paige insists on it for Sunday dinner. Pasta, garlic bread, salad in the glass bowl with the chip on the rim. Mum sat at the end with her legs stretched out on a chair and her fork held like it might be a truce flag. She looked tired in the way that means you slept but didn't rest. Paige waited until plates were full. Then she reached into her tote and pulled out a plastic jar, the kind you'd see holding lollipops at a checkout counter. She'd slapped a strip of masking tape across the front and written "back rent" in thick Sharpie. There were a couple singles in there and some coins, like she'd salted it for luck. She set it near her plate, then slid it across the table toward me. The jar made a hollow scraping sound against the wood. "Okay," she said in her meeting voice. "Housekeeping." We've all been thinking about fairness, and I put together a simple plan so no one feels taken advantage of. Louis grinned like a kid who knows the punchline. "We did the math," he said, twirling his fork. $1,200 for wear and tear. You know, since you've been using the room, the laundry, the utilities." Hazel laughed high and quick. "It's not like a punishment," she added, eyes flicking to her phone and back. "Just like fair." "Adults contribute," Keith tapped the lid with his knuckle. "We figured we'll settle up weekly. Friday's fine." Mum's fork paused mid-air. Maybe we can talk after we eat," she said soft. Her eyes went from the jar to me and back to her plate, like she could fold this into the pasta if she stirred enough. My scalp buzzed. I could see the jar, the way the tape wasn't straight, the way someone had smoothed it down and then picked at a corner. I knew if I started explaining about the water bill in my name because the city kept sending late fees, about the Wi-Fi autopay I set up the day the modem started blinking red, about the grocery runs on my way home from the clinic, I would list everything and then hate myself for listing everything. "Sure," I said. My voice sounded like I'd borrowed it from someone easygoing. I took a bite of salad so I wouldn't start talking. Louis hooted like he'd won something. "See? Cooperative." "This'll be smooth." Paige slid a folded sheet from her tote and placed it beside my plate. "I made a tracker," she said. "Just jot down contributions so we know where we are. Transparency helps." I stared at the sheet. There were boxes and lines and a neat header that said, "Household contributions. March." She'd left a space for my name. The jar sat there between the bread basket and the salt, absurd and real at the same time. "Wear and tear," Mom repeated, like tasting the words. "She's your sister." She moved back to help me. "And we appreciate it," Paige said quickly. "We do. This is just what adults do, Mom. Rent is normal." Hazel nodded. "My friends all pay something when they stay with family. It's about boundaries." She said it like she'd read it on a graphic. Keith shrugged. "You know what you should do? Treat it like a sublet. That way no one gets weird." I chewed. I kept my eyes on my plate. The kitchen smelled like garlic and the faint lemon I'd used to wipe the counter. The payment due dates I'd memorised hummed in the back of my head like the fridge. Lewis pointed his fork at me. 1,200's generous, honestly. Utilities, food, all that. You don't want a nickel and dime. Just a clean number. It's a lot to spring on people, Mum said, voice even. Maybe start smaller. Talk through it. Paige lifted a hand without looking at her. We can adjust later. Right now, this gets us started. The old urge to explain rose up again, huge and stupid, with examples and receipts and the exact price of oat milk on sale versus not. I swallowed it whole. It sat heavy. I can get you cash Friday, Keith offered, acting helpful. I get paid Thursday. We're not shaking her down, Mum said, sharper than usual. We're discussing. Louis laughed like the edge didn't exist. We're being organised. The jar caught the light. I put my hand in my lap and slid my phone out, thumbed open notes. Under the table, while they talked around me about percentages and fairness, I typed one sentence: stop paying for what they don't see. Monday after work, I didn't turn on the TV. I made coffee, pulled my laptop onto the kitchen table, and logged into my bank. I searched for market, grocery, city utilities, internet, and filtered for the day I moved back in through last week. I printed everything that was the house: chicken thighs and paper towels, produce and dish soap, the water bills, the Wi-Fi auto-pays. The little printer on the counter hiccuped and chewed. I fed it fresh paper. I wrote dates in the margins with a pen. Nove, 12, 6843, pre-op groceries. Decker 7, city utilities, 41.90. Jan 3, internet 86.39 with tax. Oat milk on sale, 3.19, Hazel thank you text. Doritos not on sale, 5.79, Louis thumbs up. It added up fast in ink the way it doesn't in your head when you're just grabbing milk on your way home from the clinic. I opened the calculator on my phone and tapped Wi-Fi X months, water X months, groceries X weeks. The number blinked up, 3,486. I wrote it at the top of the pile and circled it hard enough to dent the paper. The group chat pinged while the printer spit another page. A meme about landlords with a piggy bank, a string of laughing emojis. Paige wrote, "We'll make it painless. Organisation helps." I muted the thread for a day and kept stacking papers in neat piles: groceries, internet, water. I found a manila folder in the drawer with the pens that always skip and labelled it House. Then I called the internet provider. I put them on speaker and stared at the jar on the counter from last night, empty now that Paige had tucked it back in her tote to take it home for accountability. "Hi, this is Ruby. I'm calling about service at my mother's address. The account is in my name. I need to schedule a disconnect for the end of this week." The rep asked for my details, verified the address, and offered me a promotion if I stayed. "I don't live there anymore," I said, and the words felt like a test balloon I let go. "Saturday is fine. Service will end at midnight Friday into Saturday," she said. "There may be a final prorated charge. Send it to my email," I said. "I'll settle it." I called City Utilities next. Gave them the account number from the top of my printed bill. "Final read on Friday, please," I said. "The new account holder will call you." "Are you moving?" the clerk asked. "Soon," I said. "This week." I took a breath and opened the Classifieds app. Hazel swears no one uses anymore. I searched studio, month to month, utilities not included. A listing popped up. Small studio above a barber shop, private entrance, month to month, available now. 6 blocks from the clinic. The photos showed a square room with a window facing a brick wall, a sink you could touch from both sides with your elbows out, and a bathroom you could turn around in if you tried. I drove over before the light went fully out. The barber shop was closing, brooms sweeping hair into a neat line. A man in a windbreaker met me at the side door. "Frank," he said. The stairs smelled like old wood and something citrus. The studio was exactly what it looked like. Clean enough, quiet, a hum from the building. The heater rattled like a distant train. "It's small," Frank said, like maybe I'd argue. "It's fine," I said. "I work a lot." "First month and a deposit," he said. "No pets, no smoking." I counted cash from the envelope I keep for emergencies and handed it over with hands that trembled in a way that annoyed me. He wrote a receipt, slid me a key. "You can start bringing things tonight if you want," he said. "It's empty." "I'll be back tomorrow," I said. "After work." Back at Mum's, I set the folder on the table and started a chore calendar on a clean sheet. I wrote the days down the side and the tasks across the top. Trash to curb, dishwasher, wipe counters, cook, mow, laundry, bathrooms. I wrote names under the days in a rotation, simple as a board game. Paige, Lewis, Hazel, Keith. I left Mum's name off and drew a box around that choice. I wrote, "Start here." I drafted a letter on a piece of notebook paper. I kept it short because long letters are a trap. "I am not your wallet. Call before you visit. If you need something, check the calendar first." I signed my name and put the letter on top of the receipts. I tucked a pen in the folder so no one could say they couldn't find one. The group chat pinged again. "Keith, you know what we should do?" "Venmo Paige and she'll distribute." Hazel, "Lol, yes, set up a splitwise." Lewis, "A gif of someone raining money." Paige, "Transparency." I turned my phone face down and wrote $3,186 in red at the top right corner of the first page again, because once didn't feel like enough. The house was quiet except for the clock and the fridge. Mum was already asleep. Her door was mostly closed, a wedge of light at the bottom. I could hear the ice machine knocking softly. The printer spit the last page and went still. "Friday works," I said into the empty kitchen, and the words didn't echo. They just sat there with the folder and the pen and the chore calendar, waiting. Before sunrise, the house was blue and quiet. I set the folder on the kitchen counter where everyone dumps their keys and mail. Receipts inside, chore calendar clipped to the front, the letter on top in my neatest hand. I slid my house key onto it. The metal clicked louder than it should have in the dark. Mum shuffled in from the hall in her robe and socks, hair flat on one side. She had that early morning stiffness that takes a minute to shake off. "You're up," she said, like I might be sleepwalking. "I made your coffee," I said. The machine gurgled to prove it. I handed her a mug and she wrapped both hands around it. I could see her reading the folder with her eyes without touching it. "What's all this?" she asked. "Everything you need," I said. I kept my voice even. Receipts, the schedule, the phone numbers for internet and utilities. I wrote it all out. There's a calendar for chores. No one has to guess. And a letter. It's short. She looked like she wanted to argue with the kitchen air instead of me. "You don't have to—" "I do," I said, not mean. Just the truth. "I'll still help, just not like this. Call me, okay? Don't send someone to stop by. Call." She glanced at the key. "You sure about that?" "I am." I tucked my phone into my bag so I wouldn't fidget. "Final reads are Friday. The internet will switch off then too. It's all in there." She nodded once, small and tired. I hugged her. She smelled like sleep and lemon dish soap. "PT is at 11, I said. "Paige is on today's drive. It's written down." "I can call a car if I need to," she said, like she was reminding herself she had options. "That's there too," I said. "Under transport." I grabbed the tote I'd packed last night, 2 changes of clothes, my toothbrush, the thrifted lamp from the guest room that I always liked because the switch clicks in a satisfying way. The house felt like it was holding its breath. I squeezed Mum's hand and left. The street smelled like wet grass and someone else's dryer exhaust. I drove to the building with the barber pole parked behind the dumpster and let myself in the side door. The stairwell carried every sound, the creak of wood, my footsteps, a heater clicking to life. The studio door stuck a little before it opened. Inside, the air was cooler than the hall. Bare floor, window facing a brick wall, that quiet building hum. I set the lamp on a plastic crate I'd grabbed from the garage. The bulb worked. Warm light pooled in a circle on the floor and made the room feel less like a box and more like a place. I stood in that circle and breathed. No jar. No group chat vibrating with fairness. Just the heater's rattle and the faint rumble of a bus a block over. I texted the family before work. For household questions, please check the folder on the counter. I left it at that, no apology, no paragraph. I locked the studio, pocketed the key, and walked the 6 blocks to the clinic. It was earlier than I needed to be, so I unlocked the front door, turned on the lobby lights, and started the coffee for the hygienists. The waiting room clicked from dark to bright, one lamp at a time. At 7:58, the group chat lit up. Hazel, what folder? A minute later, a photo came through. Paige had taken a picture of the counter. You could see the letter on top and my key like a paperweight. Paige, got it. Then, Friday is still Friday. I didn't answer. I filed new patient forms. I smiled at Mrs. Chang when she came in early to read magazines. I put a reminder on my calendar to change my address with HR at lunch. Around 10, Mom texted me directly, read everything. Calendar makes sense. Can you help me with a couple things after work on the phone? Yes, I typed, call me after PT. I looked at the calendar I'd drawn in my head and pictured Paige driving because today was her square. The thought steadied me. On my break, I stopped by a thrift store 2 blocks from the clinic and picked up a small saucepan and a spoon that didn't bend easy. Back at the studio on my way home, I set the saucepan on the stove and washed the dust off with dish soap from a little bottle I'd bought at lunch. The lamp made the room look warmer than it was. I didn't go back to the house. That felt important. I called Mom from the studio floor, my back against the wall. We went over her MyChart login and how to see her PT schedule without calling. I walked her through finding the internet provider's customer service number on the folder when the time came. She sounded careful, like someone learning a new dance. What about dinner? She asked, right at the end. Calendar says Louis cooks on Tuesdays, I said. He can manage tacos. She laughed soft. We'll see. Call me if something's missing, I said. After we hung up, I sat with the quiet. The barber downstairs flipped his sign to closed. The building exhaled. My phone buzzed one more time. Keith, we can make this work, no drama. Louis sent a thumbs up. I let the messages stack without opening the thread. The lamp hummed. I locked the studio door and put the key on a string lanyard. When I looked at it, I felt the same thing I had when the rep read me the disconnect date. A clean line I could point to. Friday is Friday, and until then, I would let the systems I built do their job. I stopped by on Sunday because Mum texted me that morning. Knee sleeve too tight. Can you bring the bigger one? Also got a letter for you from HR. I said yes to both. Habit tugged at me, but I told myself I was there to drop things off and leave. The house smelled like tomato sauce and butter. Paige had the table set with cloth napkins because of course she did. Louis had the game streaming on the TV, volume up like the announcer was in our living room. Hazel was perched on a chair arm with her phone, casting the best angle of the spread. Keith had a chip bag tilted to his mouth like gravity was feeding him. Mum was on the couch with her leg propped on the ottoman. She looked better, less pinched, more herself. I handed her the knee sleeve in its crinkly package and a manila envelope with my name that had slid through their mail slot yesterday. Thank you, she said, folding the sleeve in her lap. You staying? For a minute, I said. I have something for you. I patted my tote. The duplicate folder was inside. Same papers, same calendar, same letter. Paige glanced at the bag. Before we eat, can we talk logistics? Her tone was crisp. The back rent jar sat on the sideboard like a centerpiece someone forgot to put away. Lewis whooped at the TV. "Let's go!" He slapped the remote for emphasis. On the coffee table, the router sat under the TV, little green lights blinking their steady heartbeat. I moved to the arm of the couch near Mom and opened my tote. The folder edge was smooth under my fingers. I had copied everything at work on my lunch break. The clinic copier prints cleaner than the one at the house. The screen froze mid-run. The announcer's voice cut to a digital stutter, and then nothing. Lewis's "let's go" died off into a "no, no, no, no." "What happened?" Hazel said, sitting up straight, like her posture could fix it. Keith reached for the remote. "It's probably a glitch." He did the universal ritual: volume up, volume down, back arrow, home screen, back to the app. The app pinwheeled and offered a cheery error message about connectivity. The router's lights shifted, blink, blink, solid red. Louis stood up. "You've got to be kidding me." He crouched by the router and jiggled cords like he was disarming a bomb. "Who unplugged something?" "No one unplugged anything," Mom said, a warning in her voice. Paige looked at me like we were across a boardroom table. Was this necessary?" "You couldn't have waited until Monday." Hazel's voice went quiet and sharp. "You sabotaged us during the game?" Keith didn't look away from the TV. "Killing the Wi-Fi on Sunday is childish, Rubes. Drama for no reason." I felt the old heat crawl up my neck, the one that makes you want to list dates and amounts and the brand of the oat milk. I didn't. I took the folder from my bag and set it in front of Mom on the coffee table, right next to the router. "I scheduled the disconnect for Friday," I said, calm. "This is the grace period ending, I guess." Louis stared at me like I'd admitted to cutting the power with a machete. "Why would you do that? We use that." "I left everything you need to start your own account," I said, still to Mom, not the room. "It's in here. The steps are clear." Paige crossed her arms. "Ruby." "Everyone, please," Mom said, but Louis was already spiraling. "It's mid-game." "Who cuts the internet mid-game?" "It's a stream," Hazel corrected, like tech support. "And it's not working." Keith finally looked away from the TV. There were other ways to make a point. I pointed to the folder. "All the bills I paid are in here. The calendar is in here. The numbers and the phone numbers. I made a second copy in case the first one went missing." The last word wasn't an accusation. It just sat there. Paige's eyes flicked to the sideboard where the jar was and back. "We were going to sort finances," she said tight. "You set a jar on the table like a tip cup," I said. "This is how I'm sorting." Louis threw his hands up. "Great. I hope this felt good." "It didn't," I said. My voice was still flat. "Mom asked me to bring a sleeve and pick up my mail. I'm doing that." Hazel folded her arms. "You didn't have to make it a spectacle." I nodded at the coffee table. "There's nothing spectacular about receipts." Mom reached for the folder. Her hand hesitated over the cover, then she pulled it toward her. The router light stayed red. The TV kept offering its little spinning circle like a shrug. Paige opened her mouth to launch into something with bullet points. Louis shifted like he was going to unplug and replug every cable in the house. Hazel inhaled to say, "Wow." Keith was gearing up for a speech that would start with, "You know what you should have done." I put my palm flat on the folder to stop it from sliding and looked at Mom. "Please read it before anyone speaks," I said. Mom slid a finger under the folder flap and opened it like it might bite. The first page was a grocery receipt with the date at the top. She read the columns line by line, lips moving a little. She flipped to the next. City utilities, due dates, payments, internet invoices with the little auto-pay confirmed boxes. She lingered on the Wi-Fi amount, the way the total crept when taxes hit. The red circle around 3,486 tollings took up half the page. She put her palm on it like she was checking for heat. No one talked. The TV sat there with its cheerful error message, the little spinning circle going nowhere. The fridge kicked on. I could hear Hazel's nail clicking against her phone case. Paige broke first. "This is dramatic," she said, keeping her voice smooth. "You didn't have to make a binder." "It's a folder," I said. Louis groaned. "We get it, you paid for stuff. The timing is the problem." "I scheduled it days ago," I said. "The dates are on there." Hazel leaned over the coffee table like she might see something different if she looked closer. "You could have just said something. We're not mind readers." "I left this exact folder on the counter Tuesday," I said, "with a letter." "The calendar's on the fridge." Keith tipped his chin at the papers. "You know what you should have done? Brought this to us before cancelling anything. Then we could have—" "I did," I said. "You were all here." He blinked, replaying earlier in his head, then decided not to argue the point and went back to staring at the error screen like it owed him an apology. Mum turned a page. Her eyes softened at the little notes I'd written in the margins. Oat milk sale with an arrow, Doritos with a thumbs up. She flipped to the water bill stack and touched the city utilities account number with her fingertip like she was setting it in her memory. Then she got to the chore calendar. She traced the rotation, Paige, Louis, Hazel, Keith, down the columns. She noticed her name wasn't there and looked up at me. "I don't want you doing it all anymore," I said. Louis snorted. "We do things." "Some," Mom said quiet, and Louis shut his mouth. Paige pointed at the red circle like it was a target. "If you felt this way, why didn't you bring it to me? We could have made a spreadsheet. We could have split—" "You brought me a jar," I said. I kept my voice level. "You called it back rent." Hazel winced. "Okay, yeah, the jar was a lot." "It was a start," Paige said, chin up. "It was an attempt at structure." "It was a tip cup," I said. "This is structure." Mum turned to the letter. She read the 3 lines twice. I watched the words land. "I am not your wallet. Call before you visit. If you need something, check the calendar first." She blew out a breath that sounded like it had been inside her since November. She set the letter down and reached for the jar on the sideboard like it might jump if she startled it. She picked it up, held it for a second, then put it on the coffee table next to the router. It looked small there. Louis rubbed the back of his neck. Why cut the internet on game day?" "I didn't pick the hour," I said. "I asked for the end of the week. That's what they gave me." Hazel flicked to the chore page again. "So, cooking rotates, dishes rotate, trash rotates. And this is every week." "Yes," I said. "No one has to guess." Keith pointed at the city utilities printout. "So, this account is closed?" "In my name, yes," I said. "Final read Friday. The number to open a new one is in there." "Same with internet. You can call tonight or tomorrow, whatever." Paige crossed her arms tighter. "This is punitive." "It's a boundary," I said. "I cancelled accounts in my name. I'm not shutting you out of anything. I left instructions so you can take over." Louis blew out air like a laugh with no humour. "And the money? You expect us to just— what, pay you back like your Comcast?" "The total is there," I said. "What you do with it is up to you." Hazel bit her lip. "You should have told me if you needed help with groceries." "I didn't," I said. "I needed you to see them." Mum slid the letter back under the receipts, squared the stack with her hands, and sat up straighter. The silence changed shape, less frosty, more waiting. She looked at the jar again, then at the router, then at me. Something settled in her face. Less smoothing, more deciding. "Paige," she said, calm but firm. "Enough." Paige closed her mouth. A little shock flickering there. Mom picked up the folder and hugged it to her like a slim book. She turned it back to the internet invoices, read the provider name, and then looked at me, steady in a way she hadn't been in months. "Can you help me set up my own account?" she asked. The room went so quiet I could hear the heater click in the wall. I moved to the end of the couch and set Mom's phone on speaker between us. She pressed the provider's number with her thumb. The line rang twice, then a cheerful voice. "Thank you for calling. How can I help you today?" "I need to start internet service at my address," Mom said, clear. "The previous account was under my daughter's name. It ended Friday." They asked for her name, address, email. She read them out slow. Date of birth, last 4 of her social. She didn't flinch. Paige started to say something about promo rates, and Mom lifted a hand without looking away from the phone. "We can get you set up right away," the rep said. "Do you have our equipment on site?" I picked up the router and read the model number, the MAC off the sticker on the bottom. "We do," I said. "Same equipment. It was active 2 days ago." "I can provision that to your new account," the rep said. "You'll see service within 10 minutes. Plan is $79.99 plus taxes and fees. There's a $20 activation charge on your first bill." "That's fine," Mom said. She glanced at me and I nodded. "I'll need a preferred phone number and a payment method to finalise," the rep added. Mom recited her cell number. When they asked for card info, she reached for her purse. "It'll be my debit card," she said. She paused, looked at me, then kept going. She read the number, expiration, the zip, each digit steady. It felt like the first set of steps without a hand on the rail. "Thank you," the rep said. "I'm pushing a refresh to your equipment now. You may see your router lights change. Please don't unplug it while it reboots." Lewis hovered, ready to pounce if someone told him to touch a cord. Hazel watched like it was a live stream for grown-ups. The lights on the router blinked, slowed, then went steady green. The TV app loaded itself without drama. The game came back mid-commentary. Louis let out a breath like he'd been underwater. Keith hit unpause on his mood and sank back into the chair. "Is there anything else I can help you with?" the rep asked. "No," Mom said. "Thank you." She hung up and held the phone in her lap for a second. Then she set it next to the folder and exhaled. The room shifted around that, all the tight pretending unclenching a little. Paige was already leaning forward. "We could have bundled." "Paige," Mom said, enough." It landed softer this time, not a reprimand, more of a line. Paige leaned back. Before anyone could fill the space, I pulled a single sheet from the folder. It was the only new paper. I slid it onto the coffee table and turned it so they could read. "Repayment plan total, $3,886 $50 per week until paid. 1 envelope on the counter every Friday, initial and date." Lewis groaned. "You're kidding!" "It's petty," Keith said, like he was doing me a favour by naming it. "It's simple," I said. 50 a week, signed by whoever's week it is. No hounding. It's in the kitchen when I stop by on Sundays. I'll text you the remaining balance once a month." Hazel squinted at the paper. "This would take over a year." "Yes," I said. "That's how much it was." Paige lifted her chin. "You can't enforce this." "I don't need to," I said. "You all know where the envelope goes. You all have my number. I'll mark it down until it hits 0. Louis rubbed his face. "We're already doing chores now," he said. "This is extra." "This is past," I said. "Chores are present." 2 different columns. Mom reached for the back rent jar that was still squatting on the coffee table by the router. She weighed it in her hand and then set it down hard enough to make the coins jump. She slid it across the table toward Paige, the way Paige had slid it toward me a week ago. "This is for tracking the envelopes," Mom said, voice even. "If you want a jar, make it mean something. Keep it on the counter. Put the signed stubs in it. No memes. No group chat pressure." "Just the paper." Paige blinked, not used to being assigned the thing she thought of. "Okay," she said after a beat, adjusting to the new shape. "I can do that." Hazel traced the $3,786 with her finger. Do we start this week? We start Friday, I said. Louis threw an arm toward the TV like it could testify for him. But this was a one-time... It was 8 months, I said. It's all there. He shut his mouth. He wasn't built for numbers, but he knew months. Keith opened his to suggest something, spin the jar, change the amount, make it more reasonable. Mum looked at him once, and he adjusted mid-sentence. Or we could just do it. We'll call City Utilities tomorrow, Mum said to me, flipping the folder to the water bills. They open at 8. I'll bring my card. I put their number on a sticky note, I said. Left side pocket. She found it and smiled at the tiny square, like it was proof I knew the house better than anyone. She set the folder on her lap and patted it. Thank you, she said to me, but also to herself, like for following through. The TV rolled through a replay. The router hummed softly. The jar sat there in front of Paige now, heavier than it had been when it came from her tote. I stood. I'm heading out, I said. I'll stop by Friday after work. Paige nodded, already planning. Hazel was quiet. Keith gave a small salute with his chip. Louis didn't look away from the screen, but he didn't reach for the remote like he owned it anymore. At the door, Mom called my name. I turned. She lifted the folder a little. We'll handle it, she said. I know, I said. And for the first time since November, I did. My studio started to smell like coffee and clean laundry once I figured out which window to crack while the dryer downstairs ran. The lamp on the crate made a small circle of warm light in the mornings while I ate toast over the sink. It was quiet enough to hear my neighbour's radio through the wall when he tuned it too loud by accident and turned it back down after one song. I got good at the quiet. At 8:27 on Monday, Mom called. I did the water, she said, a little triumphant. They had me read the numbers off the meter. The woman on the phone was patient. First bill in a couple weeks. Good, I said. Put the due date on the calendar when it comes. I will, she said. Paige put the calendar in a sheet protector so it doesn't get greasy. That made me smile. How's the knee? Sore today, but PT said that's normal, she said. I'm making chicken later. Louis is chopping because the knife makes me nervous. Take a picture of the counter after you're done. I want to see it clean. She laughed. Bossy. Friday, after the clinic, I stopped by. The house sounded different, TV low, dishwasher running, a window open somewhere letting in a slice of real air. On the counter, under the magnet that used to hold pizza menus, there was an envelope with $50 inside and P written on the front in Paige's tidy printing. Next to it, the jar sat with a slit cut in the lid and a stack of signed stubs rubber-banded together. Paige was there, wiping down the stove with small, efficient circles. Envelope's there, she said without turning. We're tracking in the jar. Okay, I said. We didn't have a fight to have. That felt new. On Sunday, I brought Mom a container of soup I'd made in the tiny saucepan I bought at the thrift store. The chore calendar on the fridge had check marks in 3 different pens, green next to trash, blue next to dishwasher, black circles by cook. Hazel was loading plates into the dishwasher the way I'd taught her years ago without comment. Louis asked me about my day at the clinic while he tore lettuce for tacos. Busy, I said. Crown came in late, so Mrs. Chang will be thrilled tomorrow. Tell her I picked her like a winner in the bracket, he said, dead serious, and I laughed because he meant it. Keith was on a step stool in the hallway replacing a beeping smoke detector instead of announcing that it needed replacing. The old one sat on the console table. He held the new battery up like he'd hunted it himself. Got it, he said. Good, I said. Check the one in Mom's room too. He went without a speech. I hugged Mom, put the soup in her fridge, and left before anyone remembered to ask me to stay. The envelope on the counter had L on it in a shaky, slanted scribble. I put it in my bag. At home, I updated a simple note on my phone. Paid $100, balance $3,386, and put the cash in an envelope in my desk. The group chat got quieter. There were fewer memes and more practical messages. Paige would post a photo of the calendar at the start of the week with names under tasks, and whoever had the week would text a thumbs up when they dropped the $50 on Friday. Twice, Hazel asked to swap cooking with Paige because of a late meeting. They handled it without looping me in. When they wanted to stop by my studio, they asked if it was a good time. Sometimes I said yes. Sometimes I said, another day. Mum started calling me about normal things again. Do you drain or rinse canned beans? She asked on a Tuesday. Rinse, I said. They're less salty that way. On Thursday, she called after PT and told me she'd climbed the therapy steps without the cane. I cheered into my phone on the walk back from the clinic and didn't go buy groceries after out of reflex. The next Friday, there was $50 with H on the envelope and a note under it in Hazel's stacked handwriting. 4 groceries, too. I left the note on the counter and took the $50. The groceries were their job now. A bag of frozen peas in the freezer, a loaf of bread on the counter, and the calendar with boxes ticked said they got it. When I stopped by the following Sunday, the lawn was cut and the edges were neat. The mower sat in the shed. The smell of gasoline clung to the doorway. Keith had dragged the ladder out to knock down a limb over the porch, even though it meant sap on his hands. Inside, the router hummed, the bills were clipped together on the command hook near the door, and Mom's pill organizer was filled correctly for the week. Paige moved around the kitchen like someone who lived there, which she didn't, but she understood it now. She avoided my eyes, but when I picked up the envelope with K on it, she said, "Utilities due on the 5th this month. We have it covered." Almost like a report. I nodded. That was enough. Back at the studio, I folded laundry warm from the dryer and listened to the hum through the wall. I paid the last prorated internet bill they emailed me and closed the account dashboard. I changed my address with HR and ordered a rubber mat for my bathroom so I wouldn't slide when I stepped out of the shower. On the 4th Friday, there was a 50 with P again and a note from Mom on the corner of an old grocery list. "Can you send me that lemon chicken recipe?" I texted it to her with a photo of my saucepan like a joke, and she sent back a picture of her plate with a fork resting on the edge and said, "Came out good." Peace wasn't loud. It was the sound of the dishwasher at the right time, the envelope where it should be, the chore calendar with last week's smudges and this week's fresh lines. It was my phone not buzzing at midnight with "Can you grab?" texts. It was Hazel rinsing beans without a speech, Keith folding the ladder and putting it away, Lewis asking about someone else's day. It was Paige tracking stubs in a jar she used to think was a good idea for me. I locked my studio door that night and set the key on the hook by the light switch. The room smelled like coffee grounds and clean cotton. The lamp hummed its small hum. If they want access to me, they can knock.